You know,
And let me just say this, and I might be the villain. I might be the villain.
it's okay.
Okay.
That makes two
Uh,
of us.
but let me just say this as well. I'm a single mom from the standpoint that I don't have a spouse. Okay. However, I'm not a single parent. I say solo parent because of the distance in between, but my daughters, their dad is still involved, still in their life. The only difference is the distance. So throughout this whole process of me relocating, I've been single now for 4 years. And I had to do a lot of work. A lot of people would try to push you into relationships. Like I told you before we connected that I was always having somebody on the sideline before I would even heal from that. And in order to be able to successfully move on without bringing the same traumas and all that other stuff into relation, you got to give yourself time. You get what I'm saying? So the distance, and like I say all the time, like you always hear about the bitter baby moms or the bitter people and all that. Being as though I relocated with my kids' fathers could have fought me with that. You get what I'm saying? Like they could have been like, "Oh no, you're not doing that." They could have made it very hard because I was thinking selfishly. I was thinking about being there for my mom, not really thinking about how they showed up as a support system for my kids and all that. I'm seeing that now, but in that moment, I was being very selfish, not intentionally, but if we call a spade, that's what it was. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I'm the one with them 24/7. But some men think like, oh, well, I'm a provider. And during that time, my kids were young. They're not small like that forever. So life happens, they go up to Delaware in the summertime. Their dads come down as often as they possibly can. So I just want to be very clear. Everybody's solo or single parenthood may look different. I have a lot of people that I know that are married and be like, I feel like I'm a single mom. Like I'm still so the immature part of me used to be like, I could do bad by myself. Like I can't sit up there and hold on. But then the reality, I remember seeing a clip from Michelle Obama where she was like, for the first 10 years of her and Barack's relationship, she hated him. He coming home smiling from golf, like kiki kiki. Meanwhile, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but she was like, your kids are but that small. And that was like the light bulb that went off for me. I'm like, I'm always trying to look for an exit out instead of sitting up there going, because you're going to have trials and tribulations throughout anything, and nobody's going to have 100% of everything that you're looking for in a person. And it's about enduring those things, talking about those things, being mature about those things, having those uncomfortable conversations to pivot and do what works for y'all. We got social media now. Like I've had the experience being 39 in a couple of days of having the world with and without social media.
Yeah.
So we see how differently we can think and all that other things, but I'm grateful for the beginning and the where we are now with that. But yeah, so I just want to point that out that I'm a single person because I'm not in a relationship, but I definitely have the help and support and the backings from my kids' fathers or whatever.
Got you. And that's and we really don't hear that a lot either, right?
Right.
As far as, with the dads and sometimes because relocating can be a lot because even with my daughter, I have a 21-year-old daughter, and even when I remarried, I relocated. And so I didn't get my daughter until like a year later, So it was just like it was this whole process. I had to pay child support and alimony for a year. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I ended up getting her from 16 to 18
Okay.
to make sure she graduated and stuff like that. So um, she got to see me, in a previous marriage and being remarried. And that was a whole conversation piece, that whole relocation with your child. So
Mm-hmm.
I hear you, but I don't think we talk about that enough either, though. Relocate.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight because I'm the type of person that I'm a girl's girl. I'm a girl's girl, but I'm also coming from a place of accountability. It's not always the men and it's not always the women. So I feel like it's very important that we start having those conversations because we're not the end all be all. We're the mothers, but we're not always the end all be all. And you got to take that into relationships don't work. But how is that person as a parent? They might not have been a good girlfriend, they might not have been a good boyfriend, but how do they show up for your kids? And you also just got to keep in mind they might not do things by the book like you do. But that's a part of taking accountability. This is a person that you chose to have kids with. So at the end of the day, you got to take some type of accountability and give them space and a room to grow where, like you have had.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree because, and I like what you said. They might not have been a great boyfriend or girlfriend or even a spouse, but they were a good parent. And it could be vice versa. They probably
right,
could have been a great boyfriend, girlfriend, but they sucked as a parent.
right.
So and I think that's a conversation too. Like how do you know if somebody's going to make a great parent or not? Because you
and,
know,
and come from a good family. You get what I'm saying? Like I pride myself. I have an older brother and now my younger sister. They both are the only ones outside of me that have kids. So I pride myself on being an aunt. My niece was just here. I'm like, girl, let's go shopping. Like, I pride myself on being a family person. And that came from like my dad. We didn't get to see my grandparents as often. So even when I lived back in Delaware, what was one more girl to come around? You know what I mean? So that's how I used to look at it. I had my niece more than her dad did. Like, so having a good family and backing, all that makes a difference in a child's upbringing. Like, my whole logic and my mindset is the more people that love my kids, the merrier. Now, I am very protective because I went through trauma and I went through SA as a child. You get what I'm saying? From a family member. So I'm still very protective when it comes to my kids and who they're around. But I pray for discernment. And usually when I'm like, nah, that don't look right, that don't feel right, I'm going with my instinct.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I get it because of course you can't leave your kids to everybody, and I get it because mom,
mhm.
y'all have that instinct.
Yeah, yeah.
Like something ain't not right here. But I do like what you talk about as far as community. I think that is very important. People that you can trust.
Right.
People who have your back. Because, and again, I think it takes a village. It really does. Like it's so hard
Absolutely.
to do it by yourself. Can it be done by yourself?
Of
Yes.
course. It can, but even like you said, like with your situation, you guys are managing. Every day might not be rainbows and sunshine, but you get up and do it again.
Yeah.
So it
Hmm.
could be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I didn't expect for us to have autistic kids back to back. That wasn't in the cards, but
Hmm.
here we are. So
You
uh,
was one of the strong soldiers.
yeah, and I did a whole series on it on autism beyond a diagnosis,
Hmm.
and I had other people come on the show and we talked about that and like the struggles, the things that come with it, and even okay, I don't want to get into rabbit trails, but I realized that I didn't get the responses from men that I thought I would get about finding out if their child have autism or even if they're willing to discuss that. Because a lot of guys in their head, they're thinking one thing, like, oh, my son's gonna play football or he's gonna be a basketball player, and then he might be autistic. And
But from you sharing that, it sounds like a lot of the reasons as to why I share things. All it takes is one person.
yeah,
And a lot of times, like even just coming from my generation, like I felt like people had these silent expectations of me as far as like, oh, like I hear all the time, oh, you can cook. Like, why you ain't got no man? We gotta find you a man. That ain't for everybody. And one thing I don't want to do is be the cause that somebody need therapy after me. You get what I'm saying? So I feel like a lot of times, and I know I'm not trying to generalize this, but a lot of times men are not as in tune as women are. Women are usually the ones to be like, okay, my child is not developing this way. Like, a lot of times men like, oh, they all right. They just need, they're behind, like they're very old school. Men are very set in their ways, whereas women, we're constantly changing, we're constantly evolving, we're constantly thinking of like the next thing. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing. But I think by you having those conversations, now people could be like, okay, yeah, Johnny was acting
Mm-hmm.
weird, like, and not even saying that it's weird, but
Of course.
you look for certain milestones. So when people sit up there, like, I think that now that it's such a big conversation, I think that more people will start coming out. And like I said, all it takes is sometimes one person
Yep.
to make you feel comfortable enough to sit up there and advocate for your kids because they can't do it for themselves.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's a yeah, and and that's a whole conversation. We'll shelf that. We didn't want to get on here and talk about autism, but we just kind of
Hey,
that. What strategies do you use to stay motivated and balanced when things get overwhelming?
so I've had a lot of challenges, highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
I dealt with like being anemic. I've dealt with just recently having a hysterectomy. Um, I've dealt with feeling like I got to plan my whole year. And one thing that I've learned is